Welcome back, folks, for a new episode of leKpz, and today we'll cover the leKpz M41 90mm. This is going to be a premium tier 7 German light tank, so it's basically a modified version of the Walker Bulldog by the West Germans to carry a 90mm gun that was reborn from a 76mm. So if you like playing with a single shot 76mm on the Bulldog, or if you like playing with the Speedpanzer RU251, you probably will like playing with this vehicle, but almost everybody plays with the auto-loading 10-round clip on the Bulldog, so I guess this tank fits a small niche, but that's okay. And here's a little history about the Walker Bulldog. After the success of the M24 Chaffee, the US Army wanted more firepower and a bigger armament for light tanks, so tanks at this time were categorized by the caliber of their guns. Heavy tanks have 120mm to 105mm, medium tanks have 90mm, and light tanks were armed with 76mm. So they came out with the T-37 and the T-41 programs to modify light tanks with 76mm guns. So later came the M41 Bulldog. Now the M41 Bulldog was pretty good. It was fast, agile, with a 76mm that hits hard against T-34-85s in North Korea, right, and Vietnam. But the main problems with the Bulldog is that it's noisy and fuel hungry. It eats a lot of fuel. So this tank were given or leased out to different countries like West Germany, Israel, Taiwan, and they modified this tank. So they changed out the engines from a gasoline to diesel. They modified the guns from a 76mm to a larger caliber, yada yada yada. So here you can see the Taiwan M41D, I believe. So they added side skirts, they added non-explosive reactive armor, they modified the gun to include a muzzle brake as well as bore evacuator, and they fixed the engine, so they switch out the gasoline engine for a diesel one, and a bunch of other stuff. But the M41 Bulldog was a very popular tank, and they use a lot of components from this vehicle into other tanks, like the M42 Duster. So this is an anti-aircraft version of the Bulldog, and you notice this hull, it's basically the same hull and the same drivetrain and engine compartments as this vehicle. So this is basically the Type 64, the premium tier 6 Chinese light tank. So they fitted the leKpz turret with a 76mm gun. So interesting enough. But a lot of components from the Bulldog was very popular, and they reused it for different vehicles, like this vehicle right here. This is the M75 APC, so Armored Personnel Carrier. It looks a lot like, right, the M113. So this is basically shifted into the M113, and the M113 is the most produced United States armored combat vehicle. So it's not the most produced tank, but the most produced armored combat vehicle. Interesting enough. But the Bulldog was a very popular vehicle. It was a very popular tank. I liked it. And this is basically a German version of it with a 90mm gun. So it's okay. Well, it's Clone Wars, but as long as this vehicle doesn't explode with getting hit, and the ammo rack, the ammo rack on the Bulldog is such fragile piece of glass, it explodes so easily. But if this thing could withstand a few hits, I guess I'm fine with it. So here are the main stats and models of this vehicle. And here are some early models of the leKpz M41. Now it's basically a Walker Bulldog modified with a 90mm gun with a different muzzle brake, but it's a pretty looking tank. I believe all produced American tanks are pretty because I'm American, and hoorah. But yeah, like the Pattons, the Pershings, the Chafees, the Bulldogs, the Shermans, all pretty in my opinion. But some vehicles are not that pretty, like the M6A2E1. That's a non-produced prototype, but yeah, it's a Frankenstein. So yeah, American tanks, all pretty to me. It's healthy looking, it's sleek, it's not as fat, but it's still, healthy looking, chunky. Describing tanks the same way I describe women. Oh boy. Oh, okay. So as you can see, it's not like Russian tanks where they're huge, buffy, like gigantic. Russian tanks are the same. French tanks are sleek, sexy. I'm describing tanks the same way I'm describing women. Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay, let's get off that. Alright, so as you can see, this vehicle is not textured. It's white. The tracks are wooden. So this is not the right texture for the tracks, but yeah, it's not going to be white as a color base for the vehicle. Now, what is interesting is the T55A, the Tier 9 Special Reward from Personal Missions vehicle, is green, but that's a German tank, even though it's a Russian-based T55A. So I don't know what color this vehicle is going to be. Is it going to be the same olive color for American tanks, or is it going to be the German color, which is grayish? So small things to think about, whatever. But here are the collision models of this vehicle. As you can see, it has no armor. It's a light tank. Only 25 at the front, 19 at the sides, or 25 at the front of the sides, and 19 at the rear of the sides, and 25 for the turret all the way around. 35 millimeters for the mantlet, but you're not going to bounce a lot of shots. You could bounce with the tracks, I guess, like the tracks eat the shots, but don't rely on it. You're a light tank. You're not supposed to be getting hit. Oh boy. So yeah, it's a decent looking tank. Now also, what is interesting is that the leKpz M41 is supposed to be a little bit shorter than the actual Bulldog by 425 millimeters. So this should be a smaller target, but not that much. It's going to be a premium tier 7 German light tank. Has 900 hit points, so that's okay. 500 horsepower engine, weighs 23.5 tons. So the power to weight ratio is 21.28, which is okay, mediocre. The good end of horsepower per ton ratio is around 24 or above. The lower end is around 20ish to 19. So basically, the AMX 1375 has the lowest horsepower per ton ratio for light tanks at tier 7, but that vehicle has the best camouflage rating. So what that means is the AMX is best suited to passive scouting, whereas vehicles like the T71, the Bulldog, and the WZ131 are better suited to active scouting. So small difference, but whatever. Top speed is 72.4 kilometers per hour, very fast. Reverse is 24, so this thing could travel backwards faster than some heavy tanks. That's good. Hull traverse is 54 degrees per second. Turret traverse is 52.1 degrees per second. Good, good. Terrain resistance is 0.575 for hard, 0.67 for medium, and 1.15 for soft. That's very good. That's amazing. View range 400 meters, radial range 750 meters. Very good. Hull armor is 25.4 at the front and the sides. Rear is 19, so no armor. And the turret is 25.4 all the way around, so ick. Has a 90mm gun that was rebored from a 76mm. Fires AP, heat shells, and high explosive. 170mm of penetration. 206 for high explosive anti-tank. And high explosive has 102. Deals 240 damage. So it's like a tier 8 medium tanks gun. It's alright. DPM is 2085, which is pretty decent. Rate of fire is about 9 rounds per minute if you wish to put a gun rammer, but mostly you should put a camouflage net, binoculars, and vents. Or you could put coated optics, but should not focus that much on the gun. But it's still pretty decent. Reloads every about 6.7 seconds with a rammer. Accuracy is 0.38, which is not that good, but it's workable. So it's okay. Aim time is 2.2 seconds. Gun depression is 8 degrees. Elevation is 17 degrees. It's a pretty decent tank because it's a light tank. You're not supposed to be focused on the gun. So the gun aspect of the vehicle is not that important. But what is important is the horsepower per ton ratio, the top speed, and the terrain resistance coupled with the radio and the view range. So the view range, very good. Radio, awesome. Light tank. But terrain resistance is pretty good. Hull traverse and turret traverse, very good. Top speed, very good. Horsepower per ton ratio could be a little bit better, but it's still workable. So I guess it's fine. And this is a harassing tank. It's not a burst vehicle like the T-71 or the actual Bulldog. It does not unload the clips. It does not have a clip. It's a single shot. So it harasses. It fires one shot, detracts, and runs away. Or it pops you for 240 damage and runs away. It's not supposed to be constantly engaging you until you die. Not that type of vehicle, but I liked it. It's like all German light tanks, like the Spielpanzer RU-251, that's a harasser. The VK-2801, so that's a harasser. The Spielpanzer 1C is more of a burst vehicle slash harasser, so it's alright. And let's compare the leKpz M41 with the actual Walker Bulldog. Now armor wise, it's the same armor because the same tank. 25 for the upper plate, 32 for the lower plate. Side armor is 25 at the front end and 19 at the rear end. Rear armor is 19 with the engine block at 13 millimeters. So no armor whatsoever. The turret is 25 all the way around, the same. The mantlet is 32. So you won't bounce shots. You just won't. There might be a few trollish angles, like if you go hull down and they aim at the top of your mantlet. So you might bounce like one shot from this small strip, like right here, but I doubt it. So don't rely on your armor. You're a light tank. You're not supposed to be getting shot. And let's take a look at the other stats. So health wise, you have 10 less health than the Bulldog, but it's still above average by 7, so that's good. Has less horsepower for the engine by 50, so the power to weight ratio is not as good. It's below average, but it's still workable. 21.28 is still pretty decent. Hull traverse is 2 degrees less, but still above average. Turret traverse is the same, that's good. Top speed is the same, reverse is the same, good. Terrain resistance is not as good as the Bulldog, so you might be bogged down a little bit more, but still way above average, so you should not be bogged down. It's just not as fast as the actual Bulldog. It's okay, it's a premium slash special tank, so I'm fine with it. View range is the same, that's good, above average. Signal range is standard, above 700, so it's good. So basically the mobility is pretty much the same. It weighs a little bit less, so don't get rammed. So it's a small detail, but 25 tons, 20-ish tons, it does hurt if you hit a 50-ton tank. Now let's take a look at the guns. Penetration is only 5 millimeters less, but the DPM is a lot better because it's a single shot rather than the auto-loading clip. Alpha is higher. If you compare the non-auto-loading 76mm, DPM is not as good, but you have better alpha to trade, I guess. So, it's okay. Accuracy is not as good as the single shot, but that's compared to the autoloader. The same as the autoloader. So, it's a larger caliber gun. Okay, takes longer to aim. Yada yada yada. 8 degrees of gun depression and only 17 degrees of elevation. So the gun is not as good as the guns on the Bulldog, but it's a premium tank, so I guess it's fine. And you have the high alpha to trade. So this is a harassing vehicle. It's more like the Spielpanzer RU-251 or the single shot on the WZ. So let's take a look at the WZ. So as you can see, it has the same-ish alpha as the WZ, but less penetration. Better DPM though, so that's good. Accuracy is not as good, but better aim time, so it works out. And better gun depression, less elevation. WZ has crazy horsepower per ton ratio though. It's a premium tank, so this tank is suited better to harassing than the WZ because the gun depression, in my opinion, it takes less exposure to your enemies since you can go hull down. Whereas the WZ has only 5 degrees of gun depression, so it's a little bit riskier to take shots. But yeah, it's not a bad vehicle. I like it. It's American, so hoorah. And the final opinion about the leKpz M41 90mm is that this is basically a Bulldog with a single shot cannon that performs more like a RU251, so suited to the German tech line, I guess. It's fair. Now the downsides to this vehicle is the horsepower per ton ratio. It's not as good as the average, so it feels a little bit more sluggish, if that's a term for light tanks, but it's not going to be as fast as a real Bulldog or the WZ131, so be aware of that. And the gun is rather okay. It's mediocre. 170mm of penetration is decent, but not as good as the 181 on the WZ131. The alpha is slightly below the WZ as well, but you have better aim time and gun depression to work with it, to take peekaboo snapshots, if you will. So this is a harassing light tank, whereas the Bulldog is more of a assassin light tank, like an AMX. They tend to outburst their targets by circle strafing and unloading the clip. This tank has a single shot, so you cannot do that. It's a harassing vehicle. Take pot shots at enemies, take 240 health, and run away. Do not expose yourself too long. So this is the actual Bulldog. Now, if this tank shares the same problem like the real Bulldog at tier 7, then this tank has a super weak ammo rack. So getting shot means your ammo rack gets damaged and takes like 16 seconds to load one round. That sucks. So if you get shot by ISU, you're dead, since ammo rack explosion and high module damage from the BL-10. If you take a shot from the IS-3, you're dead. If you take a shot from an IS-2, your ammo rack is probably going to be damaged. Same goes for a T-29, T-32, Tiger 1s. Oh yeah, the ammo rack on the Bulldog is super weak. You have to have safe stowage for the loader, which really sucks, or wet ammo rack equipment, but nobody used that equipment. So hopefully this vehicle does not have the ammo rack issue, since it's a 90mm and they stow the rounds differently, hopefully. But yeah, that's the main problem with the Bulldog, is if you get shot, your ammo racks gets exploded and you're dead. So hopefully that's not an issue with this vehicle, but in general, it's not a bad tank. I like it. I like all American tanks, so hoorah. But thank you guys for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
But you're so supreme. I give